Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Homegrown Podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Collins. And before we get into this episode, I just wanted to take a minute to pause and say thank you. If you're new to this show, thank you, welcome. But this is about more than just headlines. This is about real conversations with the people that are making things happen in our region and doing interesting things. I'm not chasing clicks or viral clips or anything like that. I'm just trying to sit down with people that are actually doing things like building a business or running a community program, and everybody that's contributing in some way, in a positive way, to our region. And so far, honestly, the response has been more than I expected. You've reached out to me, you've shared episodes, you've shared ideas. I've even had some friends and maybe even some family say, I thought it was going to suck and it didn't. So to those of you that have reached out, to those of you that have subscribed or reposted, thank you. That support means everything to me so far. And if you think there's something we should cover or someone that you think we should talk to, or maybe you think we should talk to you, hit me up, reach out. Our Instagram is at Homegrown Podcast 508, because I guess all the other Homegrown podcasts were taken. And our messages are available. So please reach out, DM, text me, call me, email me. You can find me. I'm on the internet. Maybe you run a business and you're looking to find a new, interesting way to advertise. This could be a platform for you too. So if you're interested in learning more about sponsorships and ways to advertise, again, reach out. We'd be glad to entertain the conversation. Until then, though, you should know that this podcast has been supported by my business, which is the Homegrown Consulting Group. What we're doing is work in regulated industries. So think alcohol or cannabis or even artificial intelligence. It might be liquor licensing. It could be cannabis licensing, or just what's our strategy? What's our game plan? Our goal is to support businesses that have to deal with bureaucracy and are afraid or risks getting buried in it. So from day one, we've decided to sponsor and back this project because we think it's a good idea and we think it raises the bar. And we're glad to do it. We're actually proud to do it. But that's not why you tuned in. So this episode is really meant to tease the summer and what's coming. And if you're from this region, the summer typically means some form of Webster Lake. Lake Chagagagog, Manchagagog, Chabanangangamog. It means boats and jet skis and summer concerts and barbecues and all the things that people suffer through the winter to eventually enjoy here in New England and here in Massachusetts. So, of course, we could talk about that. We could talk about the summer concert schedule at Indian Ranch and people's favorite summer food and those sorts of things. But typical to this podcast and true to form, I wanted to talk to some folks that are doing something interesting around our lake. And that brought me to the Webster Water Ski Collective. They're not just out there water skiing. They do that, of course, but they're also building something that I think is really interesting and potentially really powerful. It's their program is one that's open and inclusive and really, really interesting. So I wanted to learn more about it. And so I reached out to them and said, would you be a guest on the episode? And so today, in this episode, we're going to talk to Ryan DesRoches, who's one of the founders of the Webster Water Ski Collective and has grown it from Webster to now you'll hear other chapters and partnered with other entities and groups throughout Massachusetts and frankly throughout the country. We get to learn about how it started. We get to learn about what it's like to build a group and a project on a public lake. What happens when people who have never water skied before get pulled up for the very first time. And why stuff like what they're doing actually matters today more than ever. So the goal is to have a fun, thoughtful, and informative conversation with Ryan about what the work of the Webster Water Ski Collective is doing. So again, before we jump into it, I just wanted to offer my thanks and say, I really appreciate your feedback so far. Thank you for supporting this project. And I look forward to bringing you many more guests in the future. And as always, if you want to come on or you have an idea of who we should talk to, our DMs and our messages are open and we'd love your feedback. So let's get into it. Thanks, guys. All right, and welcome back to the Homegrown Podcast. As always, I'm Shawn Collins, and this is where we're hoping to sit down with people and organizations and tell some stories that we think give Central Mass and our region its identity. This show is not about headlines or hot takes. It's about what's actually happening in our neighborhoods, on our streets, in town hall, and yeah, sometimes out on the lake. We created this podcast to slow things down, take our time, with the kinds of conversations that don't typically or always get airtime. Local passion projects that have become institutions, hidden gems that bring people together, and the people who show up every day, every week to try to make those things happen. We've had state representatives sit here, we've had police chiefs, educators, advocates, and now that we're heading into the summer months, we thought, let's talk about something that doesn't just bring us some joy, but also, frankly, identifies our community. So today we're going to head to the lake. We're talking about Webster Lake, a place that for many of us has meant a lot, but in a lot of different ways. For some of us, it's the backdrop of childhood memories. For others, it's a place of peace, maybe. And for others that are growing up in a growing number, it's become something even more active. And that's thanks to the work of the Webster Water Ski Collective. If you've seen the group in action, they're pretty active on social media. You know what I mean. It's not just about skiing, it's about access, inclusion, mentorship, and yeah, connection. They're building something unique on the water, something fun, sure, but also something meaningful. Our guest today is Ryan DesRoches, one of the leaders of the collective, and someone who's helped create a new kind of community on the lake. Ryan, we're going to get into a lot today. Of course, your personal story and who you are, the origin and growth of the collective, the culture that you've built and what you're building, and what it means to introduce people, especially beginners, to something as bold as water skiing. And we're going to talk about how all of this fits into a bigger picture: mental health, community identity, and what we value as a town. We'll also get into the fun stuff, the crashes, the gear, the wildest stuff you've maybe seen on the lake, maybe some of the stuff I've even done as a kid. Maybe we'll see. But first, I guess I want to start in the place that makes the most sense, at least for me, which is if you could introduce yourself and maybe tell us how all of this started. So, Ryan, thanks again for joining us.
Yes, thanks, Shawn. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about a sport and activity that I'm very passionate about. As you mentioned, my name's Ryan DesRoches. I have been skiing and doing water skiing for well over 30 years now, and having a ton of fun doing it. I started back at the Nipmuc Water Ski Club back in the early 90s, when it was people like your dad and Rocky Miller and the Keddys and some of the families that are, if you're a skier on Webster Lake, you know some of the families that are kind of legendary. And they helped reform the club back in the 90s when I was entering junior high school. And for me, I fell immediately in love with skiing. That place on Thompson Road was my second home for years and years. Eventually, we, my group, the Webster Water Ski Collective, kind of split off from Nipmuc, and started our own group. And we've been in operation since 2019, and we actually ski down at Point Breeze. That's our Webster home, is Point Breeze. And since that time, we've actually opened up into other towns as well. We ski in Charlton. And we have a competition team now that is actively going to a bunch of different ponds to get to ski, handle different water conditions, and also to kind of share a love with skiing with others. We've tried to get other people interested in the sport, and just like share our love of skiing. We just love to do the sport a ton.
Yeah.
So it's been a long and fun ride for me. So
And you mentioned junior high is when you first got into it. I remember when I was a kid, very fortunate to grow up on the lake. And so it just became sort of almost like some days you run out the front door and you hop on your bike. Other days you run out the front door and you hop on skis. And so I again, privileged, very lucky to have that access. But it sort of came as second nature. So for you mentioned junior high. What was it that maybe drew you to it originally at that age? I mentioned the ski club and sort of its access and that point on Thompson Road. And if anyone's ever gotten off, I think it's exit one. They renumbered the exits, but it's that little shack right at the edge of like 295 before you go to like some of the condos as you're off the Thompson Road. It's literally a little shack where so many memories have been made. But also to your point, now there's I hate to call it competition, but there's other groups out there that are doing it. And so again, if you're looking to get on the lake, you don't have to live on the lake to enjoy water skiing. But you mentioned junior high. What was it that sort of sparked that interest, maybe?
So, so for me, I lived close to lake. I lived on Union Point Road.
Sure.
My family did have lake access, but we weren't, we weren't really an affluent family, I guess you could say. So we didn't have a boat.
Mm-hmm.
So while I swam and loved the lake and grew up on the lake, I didn't really have access to water skiing. And my brothers, who are older than I, were members of Nipmunk back in the 80s. But during a period of time in the 1980s, Nipmunk Ski Club kind of folded up
Yeah.
for various reasons. And when I was growing up, it wasn't there until the 90s, when, like I said, people like your family and the Keddies and Rocky Miller and a bunch of people came together, the Greens,
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
came together to try and reform the club. And at that point, that was my introduction into it. So as soon as the club reformed, I was there. I might have been the first
Yeah.
one to sign up, because it's something that I always wanted to do. I just never had the access to do. And that's kind of why I continue to do it, and why my group is kind of one of our missions is to try and bring people that might not have access to ski into the sport. Because I wouldn't have been involved if it wasn't for the generosity of different people showing me and offering their boats and
Mm-hmm.
belonging to a club, to give me the opportunity to fall in love with the sport. And now that I can afford a boat, and I live on the lake now, I don't live in Webster, I live in Charlton, but now I kind of see it as, I was given so much back then. Now it's my turn to kind of take on the new generation,
Yeah.
and give them the same, and hopefully give them the same love of the sport that I grew, and the confidence and everything else that goes along with it as well. So that's kind of how I got into it. And like I said, once I got there, I didn't leave.
Yeah.
And I was there as many nights as I could be for as long as I could be down there. I've met a lot of great people. Some of those people, like, I've been friends with for the last 30 years. Even people that have fallen out of skiing, you still have some contact with. So it's like I said, it's been an amazing ride. I have friends that have skied all over the country. I have friends that are competition level skiers that are far better than I am, that are really into the competition level of it. And then I have people that, are kind of like me, that just go out for the fun of it. And then a couple years ago, we discovered the whole adaptive skiing thing, and
Yeah.
that has been truly amazing. And it's something that I wish I found out about earlier. But now that we have found out about it, it's been such an enjoyable experience, and to see how much it means to the participants that work with it, that come down for the events, as well as our volunteers, our helpers that never experienced working with somebody who might be disabled and seeing what they can do. That's been my pride and joy for the last 6 years now. So, and
It's.
it's been,
I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that's for me as I've observed the organization as you've grown and sort of now to your point expanded as well. One of the things I think that really caught my attention and not so much surprised me, but excited me about the development of the Ski Collective is that adaptive program. And I think in so many ways what you're doing, what you've done, I'd love for you to talk more about what that is, what the adaptive program is, and how folks might learn more about it, or if they're interested to maybe engage with it. but there's so many ways that I think the lake. I'll use Webster Lake as the example in this instance because we're sort of talking locally. Is again, I take for granted as a kid how much access I had to it to enjoy it, and those families that you mentioned, the Keddys, the Place family, the York family, the Greens, the Bolacks. I mean, so to your point, some of the founding fathers, it feels like, of our community. Like my father didn't really ski, but he loved teaching people how to ski.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
Probably didn't love teaching us as kids, his own kids, because maybe the patience wasn't always there, and maybe patience on both sides too. Of there's a
And we
famous
face
story.
the same issues today. So that,
Yeah,
now I know what he went through
there
when
you
he had
go. And it's
me as a kid.
it's I've got my daughter. I'm looking forward to someday getting her out on the water. I think about my nieces and nephew, and I think about how much patience we either did or didn't have with them. But um, the idea of introducing people to what otherwise can just sort of be like an observed resource. Like I see the lake, I drive by it, I know what it is, I know that but it's one of those things like right in front of my eyes, but I can't get on it, I can't enjoy it, I can't take full advantage of it. Um, what the Nipmuc Ski Club provided, but I think what you're doing as well with the Ski Collective is providing that level of access. But you're also expanding that to folks that may otherwise never be able to enjoy the thrill of being pulled behind a boat and sort of being like literally sitting on top of the water or standing on top of the water. That's just sort of like there's a rush to that. There's an adrenaline to that. But what you're doing through the adaptive program, I'd love for you to tell me certainly, but also anyone that's listening, what is the adaptive program, and one, I guess, how did you come to learn about it, but also as it's grown, what have you learned from it, and just sort of expand upon that a little bit would be great.
Yeah. So our adaptive program will really take basically anybody with any type of disability, so long as they don't have like a breathing apparatus or something to that nature, out on the water to enjoy water skiing. We use specialized equipment. So we have what's called sit skis, which can be used for people with lower body injuries, paralysis, amputations, spinal cord injuries, you name it. They can go out on the water in a safe manner and get the thrill of skiing. And in addition to that, if they stick with it, they can build up their strength and their coordination where they can start becoming much more independent. So when we first start off adaptive sit skier, we have the sit ski and then we use outriggers, which are kind of skis on the side of it to make it really stable.
Mhm.
And for our skiers that participate, they're just kind of going for the ride. They don't need to hang on to anything. Everything's built into the equipment. So even people with severe disabilities can go out and enjoy the sport. And they do. But, if they want to advance, there's abilities for that. So the outriggers can come off and then they can get the feel of using their core muscles to make the ski turn. They
Mhm.
can grab onto the rope. And that was one of the things that, when I first was introduced to adaptive skiing, seeing some of the more advanced adaptive skiers was so inspirational. And that's kind of what got me hooked.
Mhm.
But without going into too much detail about the advanced adaptive skiers, besides spinal cord injuries and things of that nature, we have other equipment as well for people with upper body injuries. For example, if they lost an arm or something like that, we have specialized equipment that can help them still get up on two skis.
Mhm.
So we try to build our program so it's available to as many people as we can get out on the water. So if you come to one of our adaptive events, one of our bigger adaptive events, you'll see people with cerebral palsy, lots of people with Down syndrome, autism, spinal bifida, and really anything and anything in between. And a lot of these people never had even dreamed about getting out on the water, and having this opportunity. It's a really niche thing, and just to see them when they get suited up and when they go out, and their faces light up. That is worth $1 million.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
That is truly what drives me to continue to push my program forward, and what gets my volunteers all excited too. The smiles, the thank yous, the everything that is involved in seeing them grow and seeing the smiles on their faces. It just makes it worthwhile. And for them, for us, it's going out and having fun and skiing, and it's something that we would do anyways. But for the participants, and they keep telling me this, and it's still hard for me to comprehend, but it means so much more. A lot of our participants, some of them are born with their disabilities, like our Down syndrome kids are born with their disabilities, and they have to try and overcome them and learn to adapt them with them throughout their life. And then we have others that have gotten their disabilities through by accident or by some traumatic experience, and those are the ones that really affect me the most, because that they go through such a process. For example, we have a young girl that I've been working with over the last couple of years, that lost her sight at 17 years old as a senior in high school. So just picture in your mind, senior in high school, you have your whole life looking ahead of you, college, prom, everything else, and to have that taken away from you, to have a traumatic injury that took away your sight. And now you have to learn life all over again. And a lot of these people, they fall into a deep depression, and they struggle. So they're looking for something to latch on to give them some form of normalcy, to show them that there's still enjoyment in life despite their abilities. And that's kind of what our program tries to do. And like I said, for me and for a lot of our volunteers, we don't see it as that. We see it as going out with our friends, having fun. But for our participants, like I said, it means so much more. And I've been told, and one of the things that's hard for me to comprehend, and I'm still thrown back, is when a participant tells me that we've changed their life in some way. And that blows me away. But, understanding what they've gone through, and getting to know the participants a little bit better and their struggles and their stories, you can definitely see how just basic activity and inclusiveness and feeling part of a team or part of a program means so much to them. And that's the other part of what we're trying to do is, we're trying to build a little bit of a community as well. And if you come to our events, it's a social event for those participants too, because they see friends that they might not get to see, that they might participate in with Special Olympics or another program such as like Team Hoyt that we partner with. So they might do a running race. They might do a race once, twice a year. So they don't get to see their friends too often that also do it. So when we get our event and they're all together, it's kind of a, not just water skiing, but it's a social event for them. And that makes it kind of extra special. So
I think it's a great idea, concept. I'm glad that through your efforts and some of the groups you work with, like Team Hoyt, for instance, that the concept kind of came together to give folks access to, certainly to get them on the water, to enjoy sort of the connection to the water. Which again, there's one thing to go for a boat ride or sort of, go for a kayak ride, but to be pulled sort of across the water, like the sensation of that and sort of the adrenaline of that. And I think you also mentioned sort of like the exercise of that. And I remember when I was growing up, like I could ski for, just pull me around the lake. And I'll let go when I fall down and when I'm tired. Nowadays, like one pass, one run for me is like, I'm going to call out of work on Monday because I can't move, my back hurts, that sort of thing. Because you really use your core muscles in a way that we used to joke as kids, like you're using muscles you can't work out. Like you can't exercise that muscle as much because the sort of the tension. But I think just to get folks that opportunity, and I think for some it's a bucket list thing I want to do. I want to try it, and for others, it's like once you do it, you're hooked. And And I think, you and I are probably in the latter category there, as far as like once you do it, it just becomes sort of a hobby and sort of an activity of yours. But I think just that the idea of doing it and being able to say, I did it. I was able to do it. And my disability or some of the issues I'm dealing with, whether it be a sort of a physical ailment or a developmental ailment or whatever the issue is that could sort of limit somebody potentially to overcome that and be able to say, I did it. The achievement of that, the source of pride, the sentiment of success, I think is really powerful, and the fact that you guys are providing that is noble, frankly. And thank you for doing it. But
Well, thank
um,
you.
I'm curious as far as how do you reach out to folks? Like, how could they learn about it, if whether it was an organization that wanted to partner and participate, or if it was just a family that said, you know what, we want to, we're new to the area and we want to be able to sort of connect and make that connection. How do folks find out about it? And then also, if folks wanted to volunteer, right? Like, if I had a boat and I wanted to be able to help, and or if I had, I grew up water skiing, I'd love to be able to give back in some way. Both, how would I be able to learn about it to enjoy it, and how would I be able to learn about it to give back to it?
Yeah. So, and that's a little bit of a distinction with our group. So we are, we have a membership and a recreational kind of part of our club. So we do recreation skiing both in Webster and in Charlton during the week. And for that, we do charge a membership fee. I think it's $175 for the year to join our group. And people can go to our website, websterwaterski.org, and sign up there if they want to participate. They can also try us first. So we have drop-in passes where people can just come out, try it, get some instruction, and if they decide they like it, they can then join for the year. And then we have our adaptive program. And our adaptive program, we try and make 100% free for the participants. So we work with organizations, and we've been very, very lucky with community support, sponsorships, and grants to be able to provide our adaptive events to everybody at no cost. So for those events, we also broadcast on our Facebook page. We use Facebook a lot to advertise our events. So that's facebook.com/Webster Water Ski Collective. And also on our website, where they can find out about our different events that we have going on. And we try and host our events all throughout central Massachusetts. And we're starting to go elsewhere as well. So we go as far north as we have an event in Tingsboro this year. We've might be doing one in Connecticut later in the summer. And we have various partnerships with various groups. But if anybody wants to find out more information about either just participating with us on a recreational or competition based level, or joining our adaptive teams, either going to our Facebook page or our website will give them all the information that they need.
Sure. And I'll include all that information on when we post the episode in all of our social media. I'll make sure to link all of those things so folks can get that easily. You mentioned some of the events and some of the recreational side of things that you're doing. I remember growing up sort of around the programs that you and I were taking advantage of as kids, and we used to have I think our meetings at the Colonial Club, and I remember getting Shirley Temples at the bar, that sort of thing. But I just remember being definitely a community. But to your point, as far as some of those people are friends for life at this point, and they've been in my life ever since then. And I remember our parents being friends, and I never really at the time understood sort of that common thread, which was the community of both the lake and the ski club and all those things. Do you find that same sense of community with the collective, and maybe a sense of like of your membership from like a demographic standpoint, like the age ranges? Because I think sometimes you think of skiing as like a youthful sport, when in reality, like there's some barefooters I know that are real old timers, and God bless them, the fact that they can still do it. But it seems to me like it runs the gamut as far as age. But could you unpack that a little bit from the
Yeah,
collective standpoint?
it definitely does run the gamut as far as age. I believe in our group, our youngest is probably about 7 or 8, and we've had younger than that.
Sure.
And our oldest, she has had 2 knee replacements. And she is in her late 70s right now, and she
Okay.
skis with us almost every night in Webster. So it really does run the gamut. And we've had even older than that. We've had people
Sure.
in their 80s ski with us. So, and in fact, part of our group goes out, and they're all over 60. So they call them the over 60 club that goes out. And my friend Linda runs that group out of Webster. So they go out, and there's, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them that go out to ski. And some of them, again, put on 2 skis. They just want to go for a ride. And some of those, those more experienced people, as I like to say, they're cutting like they're 20 years old, and it keeps them in shape. It keeps them active. And that's one of the reasons why they still do it. And then there's the community part of it. We all try to, part of the mission of our group, and, part of the mission when we were at Nipmuc too, was that the more experienced help the youngers. So, if you know something and you can give a helping hand or a tip, or here's how you hold the rope, or some kind of little tip to help somebody along, that's what we all do. And it's just a lot of fun. You're with people that this is their fun time. So that's it's no drama, no politics. We make that very clear, up front. We don't discuss politics or stuff like that. We keep
Safe, very
everything.
safe to do that.
We're here to ski. We're here to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's what makes that ideal. And like I said, we have everybody from like I said, our 70 and 80-year-old skiers are helping our kids, and vice versa. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is, now that I'm older, one of the things that the ski club proves to me is I'm getting older, because I see the kids that I remember as 5, 6, 7 that have grown up with me, and now they're teenagers or they have kids of their own, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I still remember you when, like, Shawn, I remember you as Shorty back in the Nipmuc days. So, like, to see you now, and I was young back then too. So to see us now and see that growth is kind of amazing. But one of the things that gives me the most joy is seeing those kids that have progressed through our program as the 5, 6, 7 year olds, and
That's
now
right.
turning around and becoming mentors to that next generation. Um, is exciting. And honestly, with my adaptive program, most of my volunteers, a lot of my volunteers that are going out with the disabled kids, with the disabled participants, they're teenagers. They're in high school, they're in college, or just entering college. And
Mhm.
that kind of gives me the most joy because they love this stuff. So my participants that are teenagers, some of them are working with people that are disabled for the very first time, and they fall in love with it. And that just see how they become inclusive and welcoming and compassionate, and have fun and share their experiences with other people. That gives me a ton of joy when I
Yeah.
walk across my dock in an event and I see somebody like my Sydney, who's going into college this year, and the work that she does and how good she is with kids. Or somebody, we partner with other clubs, so we have a great working relationship with the Aqua Riders of Holland, and one of their girls is amazing. She has, you see the gift that some of these kids have with working with people with disabilities. And she is just so warm and comforting, and can get people who are, a lot of our participants that come in might be afraid of the water, or haven't experienced this and loud noises of the boat and stuff. So they get anxious and very scared. And I know I can send somebody like Samantha over who is young, but I can send her over on her own to talk to those people and get them from being excited, from being anxious and scared and frightened, to being excited with a huge smile on their face. And
Mhm.
that gives me a ton of joy when I can see those kids that we helped learn to ski back 5, 6, 7 years ago now take on that leadership role,
Yeah.
and that role of being the teachers of the next kind of generation and the next group of skiers coming up.
It's interesting you put it that way too, because I think when I was a kid, I had two older brothers, and I
Mhm.
was probably the nervous kid. I was afraid of things. I didn't want to go too fast. I didn't want to jump the wake. I didn't want to, and I remember my brothers encouraging me, my obviously my father encouraging me, my everybody around me sort of encouraging me, but it was also like I had to overcome something personal to that. Like that was a exclusive to me of like I've got to get over this hump. I've got to try it and maybe fall, maybe not. Maybe I try it once, I don't fall, but I try the next time. Like, but I think there's just something to doing it and sort of overcoming something. And I think about if that's how I felt as someone again who had this sort of ready access and feels like he was sort of born and raised on the water. Imagine doing it for the first time and sort of knowing that you're on a daily basis you're sort of confronting whether it be again that physical disability or something, all the challenges that we all have. Some of them are more visible than others, and then some of them are not visible at all.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of value to the independence that being on the water, like it's you, a rope, a set of skis behind a boat. I'm either going to do it or I'm not. But then you've got this sort of community encouraging you and coaching you. Like you said, someone that says, look, when I was your age, this is what I found to help, or hold the rope like this instead, or but that's advice, those are tips, that's encouragement, but it's still me against the boat, so to speak, or me against the water, so to speak. And it's funny because I used to always get told like, let the boat do the work. Um, and then I'm thinking like, no, I've got to fight, I've got to pull it. And but I just think about sort of the mental side of that, the mental health side of that, the sense of achievement, sure, but also I did it. There's purpose. I've
Exactly.
overcome.
Yep.
In your experience, have you seen kids that maybe, and again, like you mentioned, I've grown up. I remember my oldest brother he loved jumping. That was like his big skill, and like that was his big feat. My middle brother, would sort of go off the side of the jump, would do the slalom course. I didn't want anything to do with any of that. I was like, just pull me around the water. Let me do some cool tricks, maybe, right? Like let me, I don't know, let me sit on my skis or just do something at this point sort of stupid or silly, but I didn't want to do any of that because it scared me. I was terrified of it. And then it was, you alluded to it in some of our exchanges before recording around, they built me the small jump to try it, like just try it. I'm like, I'm not touching that thing. One, like I saw who built it, like I saw whose hands were putting, screws into that. So I don't think so. That thing's definitely not seaworthy. But all the same, it wasn't for me. I didn't want to do it. And so have you seen people overcome those hurdles, but also that just sort of, catches on? You mentioned too, I'd love to chat more about like water skiing. I think for a lot of people is basically you get pulled behind a boat. It's not that hard. It's not that, it's simple, right? But I think the skill range varies dramatically
It
of the
definitely does.
competition side of things, some of the trick side of things. I'd love to maybe unpack that a little bit too. So maybe first
Yeah.
that overcoming sort of the mental hurdles, the challenges of can I do it? Yes, I can, and then actually going and doing it, and
And
then maybe that becomes it catches fire.
yeah.
Now it's a
And
hobby and a
that's
skill.
you kind of hit on something that is one of the reasons why I love the sport is that it does adapt to so many different kinds of abilities, I could say. And like you said, for somebody starting out, that might go recreational skiing, to skiing, once you learn how to get up, and that's the hard part is learning how to get up. But once you get up, going behind the boat, you're right. It doesn't take a lot of, it's not super demanding on your body. It doesn't, you don't have to be a great athlete to do the sport. And that's one of the things that I enjoyed about it. When I got into it at junior high, I was not an athlete. I was not coordinated at all. So for me, it was a sport that I could do. And then, as I learned a little bit more about it, the more and more I tried to do and push myself. And that's one of the things I love about the sport. You can do as little or as much as you want to do. There is all types of different things that you can do with the sport. From two skiing, you can go on to slalom skiing, which is one skiing. You can get into competition side of things where now you're focused on speed, you're focused on your form, you're focused on trying to get around buoys in the slalom course, cutting down your rope length to pull harder. And for that, you need to be in much better shape to do. And it's much more demanding on your body. And now you're in competition, not only with other skiers, but you're mostly in competition with yourself. Can I get that extra buoy around? If you don't want to do slalom, maybe you want to do tricks, you want to do wakeboarding. You can do wakeboarding and learn how to do flips or kneeboarding. Or if you're into performing and like showing off, then show skiing is a part of that. And that's what, Nipmunk is now doing now. They're doing show skiing themselves, and they do a great job at that. And the aqua riders in Holland do an amazing job too. So we have kids that climb pyramids, and they're on top of the pyramid at 7, 8 years old. And ballet skiing, so girls going out with their friends, sharing moves and doing more dance like performances. There's a whole bunch of avenues with the sport that people can get into. And it's not, it's not, you don't get pigeonholed into any one kind of thing. It's kind of up to you on what you want to do. And you can do as much of it as you want or as little bit as you want. Or if you want to focus on one aspect, that's great. So that's why I love the sport. It's just the variety and the variety of levels that you can be on. Um, my competition days are kind of behind me at this point, but it's still a thrill for me to watch our competition team get up and go for their runs, and then see them with that competition side. They are going to tournaments all up and down the East Coast, and some of them qualify for nationals, so they're going across country. We have one of our college age kids. He skis for a University of Arizona ski team. So he's in Arizona for the winter time, and he gets to ski with their ski team and have that camaraderie with his ski team as well. So that's one of the things I love about the sport. It's really for any age can kind of do it. And any skill level. And now with our adaptive programming, we're even seeing that, hey, even your disabilities, if you have a knee injury or arm injury, you can still do the sport. We've shown that you can do it. And that's what makes it fun for us. That builds our community up, and sharing different experiences with different people. And it's all, we all cheer each other on. We're all hoping that, my competition skiers can make it around that next buoy, or my adaptive skiers can get that little bit of extra strength to make it to ditch the sit ski and get up on two skis if that's something that they can do, or ditch the outriggers and start skiing more independently, or jumpers or something like that. We're all cheering each other on, and we're all trying to push ourselves to be a little bit better, but at the same time, we're all in it to have fun. And we try and make sure that we remember that we're here to have fun, and it's not a job. It's something to really enjoy. So
It's the fun part, I think, is another great segue of, because it always has been fun for me, but I also learned as a young kid, and then as I started to get into more, as I got older and started to drive the boat and that sort of things, there's a lot of safety features too, and there's a lot of things that I think people, and I guess I would ask your thoughts on this. Of, like, before I would go out, I would learn the hand signals, and I would learn, if I were to fall, what should I do? If I lost a ski, what should I do? But to people that maybe don't enjoy the sport or haven't participated in the sport but still enjoy the lake, like, how do you balance sort of the safety and all the structure of things on a lake that, let's use Webster Lake, is also just a busy public body of water? And so I guess twofold, like, how do you prepare your skiers and the members and participants for how they interact with other activities on the lake? But then similarly, if someone's just watching this and they see the pyramid training and they want to get a close up and they want to see it, like, please don't, because these are people that are literally balancing on top of one another. Like, so please, creating a giant wake or something, like, creates a bit of a disruption. So how do you, one, I think, balance the interaction that the club might have, the collective might have with all the other operators on the water, whether it be jet skis or boats, or but then similarly, how do you prepare your skiers for those interactions and how to be safe out there?
So safety is definitely our top concern when we're out on the water, especially now that we're doing adaptive skiing. And we're
That's right.
bringing in people with already injuries and disabilities and things of that nature. So we don't want to aggravate their injuries or anything like that.
Exactly.
So we have a variety of safety mechanisms that we use. You mentioned hand signals. That's something that all our skiers learn at the beginning. We go over what happens when you fall. So falls are going to happen in the water.
Right.
They're inevitable. So what do you do? And things like holding up a ski, signaling back to the boat that you're okay, or if you're not okay, signaling back to the boat that there's something wrong and you need assistance. So those are the basics. Every ski practice that we do, we also have a safety coordinator assigned, and that's somebody that's specially trained to watch out specifically for safety. So through our program and through other sports, other ski teams in the area like Nipmuc and like Holland, we're all members of a group called USA Water Ski, which is the
Mhm.
national body of skiers, and they provide instruction, not just for skiing, but for safety, for boat driving, and so on and so forth. So all of our boat drivers have taken safety courses, not just the new one that's required from Massachusetts that came in, the Safe Boater one. We've had that for years, but they also take a special ski course that they have to do online and go through. Our instructors all have to take courses and pass written exams. Our safety coordinators have to go to safety clinics every couple of years to renew and learn, to go over some of the basic safety stuff. A couple of years ago, we also went above and beyond, and a lot of our board got first aid, AED, and CPR certifications too. So if we need that, we have that. We hope we never have to use this stuff. That's the
Exactly.
key. We always try and go out there and make sure that we have our heads screwed on right, and we're looking for any potential hazards before they show up. We make sure that we tell our skiers that, hey, this might be a busy night. So instead of trying to throw that flip here, why don't we wait a night and wait for better conditions in order to do that? So we're always cognizant about safety on the water, but if there is anything that ever happened on the water, if there was ever an injury, we know that we have the training and we have the protocol in hand that will make us do hopefully the right thing and get that person back to safety. Make sure that we have the proper equipment on hand to treat an injury, to treat different things, and God forbid if we ever had an injury. I think one of the more frightening things that can happen would be like a back or spinal injury or a neck injury on the water, how to get somebody back in. And we just had a training session this past weekend to go over that, where we had an EMT show our group how to do this stuff and to get them there safely. So we practice that throughout the year, to make sure our staff is there. But you do mention like what happens on the water. If you go out on Webster Lake on a weekend, it's insane out there. And our weeknight skiing has also been affected with that too, where it's not how you drive. But you have to watch out for other people. And being on a public lake, sometimes we do get people that do not know how to drive their boats, or drive their jet skis or whatever, and are not following proper boating safety, or may not, then they're not doing it out of a malice, but they might just not know any better. And how do we kind of coordinate that? So one of the ways that we do that is through good communication. All of our boats have marine grade radios in them, so we're always in constant communication. Our boat drivers are talking to the other boat drivers in our club, talking to the shore, We have somebody on shoreline because where we ski out of Point Breeze, it can get very busy there with the
Yep.
narrows. So we're always saying, okay, you are clear to come in, or there's a boat that is about to pull out, so make another pass. So we're always in constant communication, and we always trying to make sure that our boat drivers, our spotters, and even our skiers are paying attention to the world around them, to make sure that they are doing things in the safest way that they can. There's some activities on a weeknight that we know we can't do because it's too busy. So we simply do not do those activities. We wait until we get better water or we can go somewhere else to do it. One of the things that really does help us out is we have a barge now so if conditions are not good at Point Breeze, we can load up our barge and find some good water somewhere else on Webster Lake and try and set up there and ski there where we're also out of other people's areas too. We don't want to disrupt, the lake is big and everybody wants to enjoy it. We don't want to wreck somebody else's water who might be skiing, who's not a member of our club, or get in the way of fishermen, or get in the way of people that might just want a tube. We want to be respectful to other people as well. And that's what we try and do. So we try and make sure that if we can get out of the way, we do. We try to adjust. But to be a boat driver in Webster pulling skiers can be a challenge. And luckily we have a lot of experienced boat drivers that have been doing this for years, and know what to look for and are very safe and very safety conscious. And that helps out immensely.
And I think about, for instance, you mentioned a really great point about pulling a skier while driving a boat. It's not like pulling a trailer. It's really its own phenomenon, but it's the things that you're looking for, and you're keeping your head on a swivel in a lot of ways, looking for how close you are to shore, looking for how close you are to other boats, looking, especially using Webster Lake, the contours of that bottom are such that it varies dramatically, and it could go from 20 feet to 4 feet and without this, the slightest of distance, but the depth changes dramatically. And so if you're familiar, you're avoiding certain areas, and so you're shooting the middle in one area, but you're hugging the shore in another, but you're staying far enough away that also you've got someone behind you that has tension on a rope. So your ability to cut a turn really fast or stop dramatically is very limited. So you're keeping all of that in mind. I mean, just thinking about it, I'm getting anxious. But the idea being like I'm glad you brought it up. You want to be a good neighbor to everyone else that's out there. You want to enjoy the lake just like everybody else. You want them to enjoy the lake as well. And so, like you said, we might go to a different area so as to not disrupt somebody. But I think about, some of the folks that haven't been on the lake as active or as long as you and I. And this isn't, I realize this can come off as sort of territorial or like a get off my lawn sort of, so to speak. But the reality is, I think, is we all have a responsibility to each other as much as we do to ourselves, which is, if my wife and I want to, go out for a sunset cruise on the pontoon boat, we just want to enjoy ourselves. And we might actually enjoy watching someone go by skiing, right? Like that might be something, look at that. We'll show our daughter, right? Like we could show at the same time, I know as the boat driver, I'm about to hit a wake. It's going to disrupt my ride a little bit. I don't care, right? And I think about the weekends you mentioned. I live in Reed Smith Cove in Webster, and I'm afraid to pull off my dock some weekends. Yeah. And so in that instance, like the lake isn't as much fun as it could be. But I also respect, some people, all they have is the weekend to enjoy the lake. And I want them to maximize their enjoyment as well, because I love the resource that we have. But all the same is we have to share it as well and be good stewards of it too. So I don't know, there really wasn't much as a question there as much as an observation, but if you have any thoughts sort of in addition to that, I'd certainly welcome.
Yeah, no, I've been skiing on the lake for 30 something years. I've kind of seen it all. And I've had close calls with other boats. I've been the skier behind the boat that has been cut off, where we have to come to an abrupt stop. And, my ski run's done at that point. And luckily, myself as a skier that's been doing this, I know how to stop safely. But if I had a 5-year-old on the back of my boat and I stop abruptly with my boat, that 5-year-old might be getting hurt.
Yeah, they're on the swim platform.
Because
Yeah,
they might not be expecting it or whatever. So common courtesy, just it's a key concept, but that really what boils down to. We don't expect people to be, you know, might not know all the boating rules and know, what side to pass on and who has
that's
the
right.
right of way in what situations. We definitely understand that. And that's one of the reasons why our boat drivers, we have them take the safety course and go through things, and we have them practice. We don't take, with our drivers, we make sure that we don't take an advanced act out or advanced skill out if they're not qualified to do so. But it's all about just sharing the lake and being a good citizen, really. And that's really what all of our group wants to do. And there's many times that we'll just sit back and we'll wait. If somebody is tubing or somebody else is skiing on our water, we'll just stop and let them go. It's not worth fighting over for a 10-minute pause in our activities. And we do enjoy having people watch us ski. In fact, we invite people to come down, have a drink on the Point Breeze. We're lucky enough to ski at a Point
Yeah,
Breeze where they have a
right.
great patio where people can watch us ski out of. They can have a drink at the bar or a meal and watch the skiers go and have a good time. So we highly encourage that, and we welcome that, and we love people stopping by and asking us questions. Um, and as part of the community, that's something that we want to do too. If somebody outside of our club wants to learn about a boat or about proper safety equipment or how to ski or how to be better, we're more than happy to share it. You don't have to be a member of a club to get some of the experience that some of our skiers have that have 30, 40 plus years of experience on the lake. We are very happy to share that, and we encourage it. We're all trying to be safer, better for the community, better for the lake. We work a lot with the Webster Lake Association and other lake associations that we belong to too. The lake is supposed to be fun and for everybody. We would hate to see an accident on the lake, and that's something that we always are striving to make sure that we set the example. It just it takes everybody just kind of being, like I said, paying attention, and just being courteous to your neighbors. If you see somebody that's just potting around, that you don't have to jump their wakes if you're on a jet ski or something like that. Just use a little bit of common sense, and I think the lake will be better served.
It
So
is. I mean, that there's rules of the road, and to some degree, and I think it's worth following. And it's worth noting that everybody that's out there is out there for the same purpose, which is to enjoy themselves and have a good time. And I think that's and nobody owns the lake. Nobody individually owns the lake, and therefore, I would argue we all have a right to be out there to a degree. We also, therefore, all have an obligation, though, to make sure that we're not intruding on someone else's good time or peace and quiet and that sort of thing. But like you said, if you see a boat pulling a skier, probably not the wake you want to try to jump. Uh,
correct.
and so those sorts of things. Or if you see a boat pulling a skier, probably not the boat you want to cut off, because you want to get to the narrows faster than them. And so those are the
Exactly.
things that you observe sometimes, and it makes my blood boil, because I think, disaster, crisis averted, but wow, was that close? And it's frustrating to see. And it just reminds me that, again, we all have an obligation. And I'm relieved to hear that your drivers and a lot of your volunteers go through that training, because the truth is, it may not be an incident that involves any one of your members or one of your skiers. It might just be something else that happens out on the water. And to know that there are folks out there that have that training, to almost serve as first responders, knowing that as much as our fire department and police department try to patrol and police the lake, it's they they have shifts they've got to cover and that sort of thing too. So, again, you always plan for the worst. You hope you never need it. But the fact
Exactly.
that you guys go through such intense training is a relief and heartening to hear. And again, I certainly hope for you and your members they never have to deploy it, and it's always just a drill. But And the off chance that it isn't a drill, knowing that you're prepared and ready is encouraging, and again, just peace of mind.
No, we agree wholeheartedly. We have specialized safety equipment. We have backboards that we bring to every event. We have some set up. I've never had to use one in my 30 plus years of skiing. I hope I never do. But it's there just in case we need it. Freak things can happen on the water. But we always try and be as safe as we can. Um, and we try and be respectful to others too. As you mentioned, if you're a boat on the water and you see somebody pulling a tuber or pulling a skier or or a sailboat or something like that,
That's
know
right.
that they might not be able to, they can't stop on a dime, they can't turn quickly. If they do, somebody on the back might get hurt. So you as somebody that might be going out for the first time on Webster Lake or any lake in particular, just kind of pay attention to what's going on around you, and realize that there are more maneuverable vessels that might be out there. If somebody is pulling somebody, they can't do the same things that you and your boat can do. Or sailboat, for example, they can't get out of the way that quick. It depends on what way the wind is blowing at that point. Um, and that goes the same for really everybody and anybody on the water. Just pay attention. I think that's the biggest thing: is pay attention, keep your eyes and ears around you, and don't the basic rule of thumb in life is try not to be a jerk. And if you can do that, then I think you're going to be fine on the
Yeah,
water, and
it's
you're
true.
not going to have any problems with anybody. We
Well, it's one
all
of
are
those
there
things.
to
It's
enjoy
like,
it.
when in doubt, right? Like, it's slow down, turn right is generally a good idea. But also, I'm glad you brought up like sailboats and other things, for instance, because those vessels that don't have power, so a kayak or a sailboat or those types of things, to your point, they have less maneuverability, but they have less opportunity to sort of to react quickly and to sort of save themselves. So the idea being, if you have that power and you have that ability, one, just give everybody some space and slow down, and and but also do that so you can enjoy yourself, but so they can enjoy themselves. And again, just share it. It's no one. I don't have any rights or sort of expectations that the lake is mine or anyone else's. It's just, it's there. It's something I've grown up enjoying. I want others to enjoy as well. I want to share it. For us, for me, it's sort of, it speaks to why I love this area and this town and this community so much, is because of that sort of the resource, the richness of that resource, and how much I do enjoy it. I also had said to someone recently that we pay for our summers in New England with our winters. And so there's a limited window we have to fully enjoy it and fully embrace the sort of the lake summer. And so we want to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to enjoy it to its fullest for as briefly as we get to. Um, and so again, the fact that you guys are providing people that don't live on the lake an opportunity to enjoy it, I think is very worthwhile. That's why I wanted to highlight it as best I could, but also that you guys are keen that, as you're skiing, there's other people out there that might be going out for their after dinner sunset cruise, and they
It's
want to enjoy themselves too.
it's too short of a season up here in New England.
That's right.
So we definitely understand that everybody wants to enjoy themselves, and we want to do whatever we can to make sure that everybody can enjoy themselves and do so in a safe manner. We're very lucky this year. One of our drivers, in fact, became Coast Guard auxiliary.
Mm-hmm.
So he's even offered, and we might start doing this, as safe boating inspections to make sure that your boat is properly set up
Right.
correctly to safely go out there. And then there's, one of the things that we're kind of happy about in our group is that the new mandatory Massachusetts safe boating license. Like I said, my group has all done it. We've been doing it for years. It's one of the prerequisites for us to get our driver's certificates and training. But that's good information. The rules of driving on the water are different than the rules of driving on the road. And just because you can drive your car does not mean that you can drive your boat safely, even though everybody thinks so. So anything that can promote safety, and keep everybody having a good time and not make a good time turn out into be emergency is exactly what we want. We hate hearing the stories. We hate reading on the news about another lake that might ban jet skis because they're causing problems and stuff like that. No, I like riding a jet ski too. I don't want to see anybody ban the fun of going out on a lake. What I just want to see is everybody just, kind of try to be mindful that, again, there's other people on the lake that are trying to have a good time, and, just being safe and fun around those people.
Right.
So,
And I think the other thing too is you don't know, it might be your 500th time on the lake. It might be someone else's first.
correct.
Just like,
Yep.
I've been driving a long time, but there might be someone out that just got their learner's permit, and we're both on the same road, and we both have an obligation to follow the rules. And my tenure doesn't give me any special privileges. I still have to follow the rules and that sort of thing. It makes me think about sort of the future, right? As you mentioned, um, towns might be looking at policies to change around, jet skis or wave runners, that sort of thing. But I think focusing or drilling in more so to the future of the collective, what are your hopes for the future of the Water Ski Collective?
Boy.
You've expanded to Charlton. You're looking at other areas.
Yes.
You know, it's a great program to see. I'd love to see it expand as far as its reach and getting more people on the water, but also getting more people to enjoy the benefits of what that might bring, whether it be the personal achievement and accomplishment, but also, like you mentioned, sort of the strength and the core building and all that. What's the future look like, and what are your personal hopes for the future of the collective?
So I cannot believe how far our little group has gotten to in 6 years. Um, the history behind the collective was that, like I said, we were part of Nipmunk. A lot of our members were part of that group for a number of years, and then things just shifted. They wanted to do some other things, and a couple of us just decided that it was time for us to step aside and let the new group kind of do what they wanted to do, and they've been really successful with it. So when I decided to leave, my boat was in Webster. I didn't live on the lake at the time, but I had a boat at that point, and I was keeping it at a friend's house. Luckily, she let me keep it, and we were both skiers, and we're like, you know what, we're gonna enjoy the summer. We're gonna go out when we can and ski. And then soon we started teaching people to ski from there because we had neighbors and stuff. Hey, can you teach my 5-year-old how to ski? We're like, yeah, sure. Bring him down. We'll teach him how to ski. And by the end of that first season in 2019, we started with 3 people. We ended up with over 20. And at that point, we got a good group going here. And that's when we decided to form our club. And we were able to get a home at Point Breeze thanks to AJ. And if you know AJ in town, he
Not
is
surprised.
an
Yeah.
amazing guy. He does so much behind the scenes for the town that people don't realize. His work with the Webster Dudley Food Share is so admirable, and the amount of hours that he puts into that is insane. But he gave us a home. He's like, use the gas shack, you can use it for whatever you want. And we start growing, and then after that, I moved to Charlton. I wasn't expected to move to Charlton, but I moved to Charlton, set up my home, and started to have people over here. Then we got a group going in Charlton that started, and then one of our the Zamitra family started to
Yeah.
join us, and they're into competition level skiing. So we were able to bring in some competition level members, and our competition team has really they're a subgroup of ours. So we don't see them too often in Webster skiing with us unless it's in the early mornings. But on our general ski nights, they usually, if they're there to help drive and do safety for us and things of that nature. But they are now going to different ponds throughout central Massachusetts. And skiing in different locations, and bringing other people into our group from other lakes as well. So we call ourselves a collective because we're a collection of a whole bunch of different
Exactly.
people and activities and stuff like that. And it's really been a wild ride. The adaptive stuff we fell into by pure accident, and it's been an amazing journey to see it grow over the 6 years. And every year we seem to be adding a couple more events and bringing in more people and working with new foundations and new partnerships. Last year, we started to do spinal cord injuries, so we got a good partnership with the Jack Trotter Foundation up in Tingsboro, so we do an event up there. We have a partnership with Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital. We're trying to do a couple events down there. They didn't work out this year, but we might do that with them in the upcoming years. We have great relationships with other ski clubs throughout the area. For example, the Aqua Riders of Hollands are, we consider them our sister club. I'm a member of their group too. And they have some members that are dual members as well. So it's all about sharing our love of the water, also about promoting the sport, because I think for a couple of years, it was starting to die out. And we didn't see as many kids out on the water as we used to, like when you and I were skiing, because there's so many other activities. Kids are involved in soccer, sports, video games, the whole 9 yards. But we're now starting to see that come back. And we're starting to see the numbers grow and people are interested in skiing. And that's what it's all about. The more people that we have that love the sport and are doing it, the more opportunities we get to ski, the more opportunities we get to learn from other people. And to, like I said, to have fun. That's what it's all about. So it's great. I've been lucky enough to get calls from people in other states that saying, hey, if you ever want to come down, if you're ever in the neighborhood, if you're ever vacationing in New York, Wisconsin, or Florida, or wherever, come on down to my little ski place and ski with us. So you make connections all over the place. And through doing this, it's been, like I said, an incredible journey. Where the collective goes from here, I think our adaptive program is going to continue to grow. I think we're going to continue to broaden her horizons a little bit and try and do some more things outside of Central Massachusetts, because we've seen a demand for that. We've had people travel from out of state because this is such an adaptive skiing is such a niche thing. I think there's only about 40 organizations around the country that do adaptive skiing, period. And we're lucky enough to be one of those 40 or 50 organizations.
That's great.
So we've had people as far south as Pennsylvania make a 4-hour drive to participate in one of our events, because it's such a niche thing and there's not a lot of ability to do it. So we think we're going to continue to expand and form new partnerships with other organizations. Our competition team is really taken off. Our coaches that helped start that, we're actively looking for some new ponds to ski and hopefully set up more of a training ground for skiers moving forward. But in the meantime, they're still, like I said, going to different ponds, getting used to different water, different slalom courses. And then tournament season is about to begin. So they're going to different tournaments all up and down the East Coast to qualify for the regional tournaments. And then a couple of our skiers have already gone on to nationals. So, like I said, for our group, we're growing in a couple of different directions. We always are going to be at our core a family oriented group that promotes bringing in new people into the sport. And then our goal is, like, we want to be able to point you to your next choice. So if you're into show skiing, and you want to learn how to do pyramids, or you want to learn how to do swivel skiing, or you want to, learn to do different tricks around the boat tricks and stuff like that. Well, we can send you to Holland and you can learn from the Holland team how to do that stuff. Or
it's
if
all
you're
in your
into
network,
competition skiing, we can put you in touch with the Avon Club, which is probably the most, for competition skiers. Avon, Connecticut is where you go. The Old Farm Skiers is where you go. It's a very expensive club, but if you want pristine conditions, that's where you go to train. So we have connected. We're lucky enough to have built connections with other groups in the area. So I think the future for us, we'll always have a hold in Webster, but I think we're starting to expand in other places too, and not just look at Webster as our home base. So we can grow the sport and make it more accessible for our members to do what they want to do, in our group too, and to reach more skiers. Like with our adaptive group, we know there's a demand in Central Massachusetts, but we know that there's other areas that have never heard of adaptive skiing.
Right.
And, there's people with disabilities that live in those areas. So if we can reach them and bring them into the sport, that's gravy.
And
So
I think the value, what I'm hearing too, which is uh, it brings me pride, is that that reach, that opportunity, that service has a base, has a home here in Webster, and
mhm,
your reach is obviously, Avon um, and the Aqua Riders, like you have like this expansion, sort of this reach, but it all comes home to Webster, and sort of, so if someone's just curious about skiing, and like you said, if you want to get up on two skis and then realize, like, I really want to try that, or I want to do the competition, right? Or you're someone like me who's like, I just want to go skiing. Like, you have that ability to cater to that person's individual wants and needs, and also plans, right? And also, who knows what their plans might be when they first try, or when they first explore it.
exactly it.
And so you're
Right.
really opening that door, but then once that door's open, they have so many options. But I think what I'm seeing, the sort of the source of pride, is ultimately all roads lead back to home base, and knowing that a lot of the folks that found their knack, found their interest, might have gotten up on skis for the very first time in Webster is amazing. And I think it's what a story. And I think there's
Yeah,
real
it's
value
it's
in that history.
it's great. And like I said, we've made so many friends throughout the years, and sometimes you lose track of them. They move out of town, or they might, we're more of a three, what we call the 3 event type club for our recreational. So 2 skiing, slalom, jumps, tricks. So we
Hmm.
don't do the show ski aspect in our club as well. So we may have a member that joins Nipmuc and wants to do the show
Sure.
skiing at Nipmuc, or join Holland and do the show skiing over in Holland. But then we get together for our adaptive events, and they all come back to help out. And that's where we all see each other and share notes and say, hey, how you doing? We've been lucky to have skiers go to different parts of the country. Last, I think a couple of years, 2 years ago, we had a guy that was trying to ski in all 50 states. So he came from Wisconsin, and it was one of it on his bucket list to ski in all 50 states, and he chose us to ski with. So that was a great experience of having this guy that's been to different clubs and different organizations come in, ski a couple of sets with us. And we still talk to him from time to time. And he's put us in touch with other organizations to help
Exactly.
out. And that's huge for, like I said, the niche market of adaptive skiing, because there's so few of us that are doing it, but the community nationwide is so strong that, and that's one of the reasons why we built so quickly, is because we were able to get advice from other groups from out the country.
Uh-huh.
We would talk to Ann's Angels down in Florida, and have hour-long conversations about how they did things, what they use for safety, their equipment, where they get it, so on and so forth. The ski dogs out in Louisiana, and our friends that gave us a start. And I got to mention our friends that gave us a start, Leaps of Faith, down in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. We've been so lucky to be able to pick the brains of so many people that have done this sport for so long, and the different aspects that just brings, what we can do in the little town of Webster and Charlton. We can do so much more with that knowledge. And if we don't know how to do it, at least we know people that do know how to do it, and we can put you in touch with those people.
Exactly.
So,
I guess
so that's
I'll close with this, because I think, thank you again. You've been very generous with your time and your perspective. To someone that's listening to this, it might be on the fence and just thinking, I don't know, it's not for me. I think about my wife, for instance. She didn't grow up in the lake. We live here now, and she's always said, I want to try it, or maybe I will, maybe I won't. To someone that's on the fence, what would you say to them, and it's sort of, what advice would you have, or encouragement would you have?
Yeah, no, I think, for somebody that wants to try it, like I said, my organization offers drop-in days, so you can just call me up and say, hey, I'm interested in trying, and we'll schedule, a time for you to come down. We'll get you all set up with equipment, with gear, everything except your bathing suit. We got.
Yeah,
And we give instruction and see what you do. And some people, like, they want to participate with their families and stuff, which is great. We do that. We typically do a couple of learn to ski days for free for the public during the summer. We don't have any scheduled right now, but we'll be adding those soon to our website. And like I said, if people want to come down and maybe they're like a smaller environment, well, then maybe coming down to one of our Charlton days might be a little bit better because Charlton's a smaller pond. It's private. I don't have as many people as I do on a Webster day. That might be a better environment for somebody who might be a little bit shy and nervous,
That's right.
and afraid of, or might have that anxiety that they don't want to make a fool out of themselves. Trust me, nobody can make a bigger fool out of themselves than I can. So, we try and make sure that we're a welcoming environment. And like I said, I think for the most part, the people that do try, enjoy it, and they might not ski again with our group, but they come away with appreciation and at least they had a fun time. We very rarely have somebody that leaves disappointed, if ever, um, if you like the water. So, if you don't like the water, well, maybe water skiing's not for you. But if you're somebody that
Snow
does
skiing is
like
still
the
an option.
water
Yeah.
and loves the sun and stuff like that, it's a really great sport. We're very lucky to have some really great people involved in our group. And like I said, our mission is to have fun and to do so in a safe manner. And if you can improve and take that next step, that's gravy. But what we're really involved in is trying to help the sport, get more people involved in it, and have a great time.
And I think you're succeeding on all accounts, by all accounts, and checking all those boxes. I think between what you've done to introduce people to the sport, to bring in that adaptive ski program, to expand the reach of Webster to all these other clubs around the country, and to export some of our local talent, but also to import talent from elsewhere and show them what we have to offer here locally is amazing. I think it's absolutely worthwhile, and I'm really grateful that you and the other volunteers have put in that time and effort to build a program that can really become a source of pride for us in our community. And for anyone that's out there this summer riding around the lake and they see some folks taking off from Point Breeze, that is the Webster Water Ski Collective. And those are the folks that do this as a passion, as a hobby, and volunteer far more time that they get credit for as far as introducing people to both the water, the sport, but also what it can be for the personal sense of pride, the mental health benefits, the recreational benefits, the hobby aspect. Again, as someone who grew up on Webster Lake myself, it's really great to see people taking full advantage of what it has to offer. And I'll say, Ryan, it's been really great to reconnect with you through this process because, as you mentioned, you and I, we started way back when, and
We did.
it's just really great to see. And I have friends for life that I met just through this sport. That again, if you pulled that common thread, it all sort of leads back to, in some way, shape, or form, to jumping off of a dock as a kid and putting a set of skis on and just going out there and seeing what happens. And I haven't been up in a couple of years, but I think you might have inspired me to maybe go into the shed and pull the jumpers out and see if there might have some more miles left on them. So
there you go.
We'll see what this year has to offer.
Yeah, stop on by, Shawn. We would love to have you. So thank you so much for having me. I could talk about skiing for hours and hours and hours because it's something that's, like I said, it's touched my life. I enjoy it. I love going out with it. It's a great family activity. I now have my daughter starting. And there's some families on the lake that are working on their 4th generation right now on the water together. So it's been an amazing ride, and we're like I said, it's you meet so many good people, and you get to have fun doing it too. And what's better than being on the water in the summertime?
There's nothing better. So again, Ryan, great to see you again. We will. I'm sure we'll have to have you back at some point and see how those expansion plans are going, and I'm sure we'll see you out there at some point this summer. So, but thank you again as always, and I guess that's it for now. To our listeners, thank you again as always for tuning in. And I don't know what we say. We're supposed to say like and subscribe and all those fun things, but just thanks again for listening and showing some interest in a lot of the positive that we have going on around our region. The Webster Water Ski Collective certainly being chief amongst them as we head into the summer months. So be safe out there. Again, if you see folks water skiing, just make sure you give them some space, enjoy the activity. But at the end of the day, we want everyone to be safe and have a good time. So thanks, and we'll see you out there.
All right, thank you.